Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Chad Calek, and welcome back to the In a Crowded Room podcast for episode number 52, where I might be opening up a can of worms with this subject matter, as we're going to talk about Julian Assange. And let me start by saying I am not really interested in political podcasts per se, just because there's so many of them. And I think politics are kind of like religion. People have their reasons for believing what they believe. And ultimately, I'm cool with that. Just recently, I got into a conversation with my college roommate and one of my high school best friends, who I adore this human being. He is just an amazing guy. And we ended up fighting about politics to the point that I was so pissed off at him. And then I just stopped and I'm like, why am I angry at this guy? Like, he's a great dude. I know he's cool as can be. I know that I could count on this guy for anything. And why do I ultimately care, what he, supports politically and what doesn't? And so I think that just kind of sums up why I don't do a political podcast. But the Julian Assange case strikes close to home for me because there's a lot of things I don't know about it, and maybe you guys could help me understand some of this in the comments below. But as I understand it, Julian Assange started WikiLeaks, and I've seen the documentaries on him, and I've seen the movie, and it was a website designed to essentially help whistleblowers get information out into the world, and it would protect them with anonymity. But the problem with that for Julian Assange is he is the face of WikiLeaks. So now with each leak, he now becomes the target, because he's the guy that's ultimately releasing the information. And he can't give up who his sources are, or nobody would ever send him anything. Now, as a former journalist and a working journalist who worked at the Iowa State Daily, the Des Moines Register, the Ames Daily Tribune, even had a couple articles published in USA Today on campus when I was younger. So I spent a good 5 years working in the field. What I don't understand when it comes to the Assange case is, how can he ultimately get into legal trouble if he's reporting information that was given to him by a source, which in America it's been very, very clear. The courts have decided you do not have to give up your sources. You can absolutely protect their identities, and there's nothing anyone can do. But in the case of Julian Assange, he was given information initially that showed American soldiers shooting and killing a bunch of innocent men. It was actually a video, and it was over in Afghanistan. And when he released this obviously sparked a lot of hatred amongst, Americans, because it's certainly showing a negative side to what goes on in war, and it's showing that when I say we, I mean Americans, America, the military, that they were the ones that were doing the killing. And there was a bunch of other information that he leaked that was classified information, again, given to him by Chelsea Manning. So here's where it gets shady for me, everyone. Here's where it gets shady. Let's first start with why Julian was in the Ecuadorian embassy. Supposedly, he had went out and partied with two girls that later claimed that he raped them, and he was wanted for questioning, which he was afraid that if he got arrested, then he would be essentially extradited back to America. So somehow he struck a deal with Ecuador where he can go live in their embassy and no one could extradite him. Which, in a weird way, that's the same as being in jail. You're just choosing the jail, right? Now, years later, he's continued to release things that come in as a journalist. And a lot of the information that he's released are hacked emails, hacked cables, and things like that from different government agencies. And they're blaming him, and they're saying that he is essentially a whistleblower. He is guilty of stealing all of this information, and that he should be jailed for it. Now, if you're a journalist, and this has happened before, this happened with, the Washington Post, the New York Times. It just happened today. I was reading somebody got 10 years of Trump's taxes. When you're a journalist and someone gives you information that is important to the public, you almost don't have a choice but to release that information. If you're a good journalist, that's your job. Your job is to bring forth information that the public would care about and share that information. And you're supposed to have disregard for, who would like it, who would want it out there, who wouldn't want it out there. As a journalist, you're supposed to be down the middle. Now, I can see where people have issues with Assange about that because he clearly has his own kind of political agendas. But nonetheless, as a journalist, when he received the videos and all of the classified information from Chelsea Manning, I don't understand how, if he releases it, how or why he should be jailed. First off, I think that the United States government needs to do a better job of protecting their information. And if they don't, again, I don't see how you can go, well, our security failed, so we're going to jail a third party who didn't steal it, who just released it to the world, and we're going to try to put him in jail here. And oh, by the way, he's not an American, he's an Australian. So he doesn't even operate under our Constitution. As a lot of people have a tendency to believe that our Constitution, blankets the world, blankets the globe, which it does not. It's it covers America. So for years, Assange is jailed in the Ecuadorian embassy, and I call it jailed because that's what it is. He can't leave, or else London authorities will immediately arrest him and try him as our allies. And yes, he faces risk of extradition to the United States, but this is where it gets even more weird. During the election, Trump was absolutely supportive of Assange, and he should have been, in the sense that Julian was releasing all kinds of information that was showing, how Hillary was basically stealing the Democratic nomination from Bernie. And there were all kinds of additional emails, really bizarre stuff that even fell into the world of the paranormal. There was emails where John Podesta, was talking to Tom DeLonge about aliens coming and 0-point energy and all kinds of stuff that I found fascinating, but they were classified. So I ask myself, do I want Julian Assange to release classified emails between Tom DeLonge and John Podesta about aliens coming to the world and releasing 0-point energy to the world? Of course, if he has that information, yes. Yes, I do. Now, I read these interviews from CIA agents and the former head of the CIA that just condemned Assange. They said, listen, bottom line, he was releasing information that put U.S. lives at risk. And that is why he is an enemy of this country. And that is why, we want to take him out, essentially. And again, I understand that, of course, anybody in his position is going to want to, stop anybody from doing anything like that. But wanting to stop somebody versus having a legal right to stop somebody, God, that's such a big difference. That's such a big difference. Now, back to the Trump presidential run. Like I said, during that time period, he was, very in favor of WikiLeaks and was, stating publicly, you got to love WikiLeaks. And it's obvious to see why. Of course, when you're running against somebody and there's somebody out there in the world that is releasing information that is damaging, to your opponent, Trump would only be human to go, yes, this is a good thing. But see, now it's weird because Trump's won, and for reasons that I'm not even entirely sure of, and it appears to be due to a bribe, but Ecuador basically decided, yeah, we're done with Assange, we're done housing him, we're done. We're going to oust him. And I believe he's been there almost 7 or 8 years. And now he's trying to fight extradition back to the U.S., where my question is, well, if Trump is the commander-in-chief, is he going to jail somebody that he supported during the presidential run? And the bigger question is, should he be able to? Because in the United States, you don't have to give up your sources. And to be clear, Assange was not the one that was digging around, in all the cables and stealing all the videos, doing like it was given to him. It was given to him by somebody else who's already been jailed and pardoned. Okay? Now, the reason this hits home is when I was in college, there was a big on-campus movement about Carrie Chapman Catt, I think her name was. And she was a woman who fought for the rights of women to vote and was eventually successful. And there was a building named after her. Well, as it turns out, either her or her family were slave owners. And there was a group on campus that went by the September 13th movement. And they wanted to destroy this building because it had Catt's name on it. And the building was funded privately, so the university could not make the call. Although the building was used by the university and it was on the university grounds, the university could not make the call. And I wrote an article about it, an opinion piece, and what I said was, I completely understand, as much as I can, without being African American, I do understand how things like this can be hurtful when you look at something and you go, man, that person and their family, they had slaves that worked for them. I can totally see how that would be hurtful. But at the same time, I could see how women could look at that building with Catt's name and go, man, there was a time where I didn't even count. I couldn't even vote. And if it wasn't for this woman, maybe I still wouldn't be able to. She was the one who busted through and gave me that right. And what I suggested in the opinion piece is I said, listen, rather than see us tear things down, I would rather see us build new things that show the progression of history. Because you can tear that building down all you want, and it doesn't rewrite Catt's history, both the goods and the bad. So why don't we, make some kind of commitment to build a MLK building? Like buildings that also showed the fight and the struggle. And it was an article that was actually fairly well received and praised on campus. But there was a small group of people that just thought, I missed the point completely, and they thought I was racist and all this stuff, which is as ridiculous as it gets. But that's what they wanted to silence me. They wanted me to be done. I can't speak. I can't have a voice. Fired. I no longer have ability to write anything. And of course, it never happened because I was protected by the First Amendment and the right to have freedom of speech. Now, you might be saying, well, what does, Julian Assange's case have to do with freedom of speech? Well, it comes down to also freedom of the press and freedom of speech. And freedom of the press in America says you can protect your sources. And he also has the right to speak. If I found information tomorrow, if somehow it came to me, and it was classified information, classified by our government, I guess my question is, does that mean I no longer have a First Amendment right to speak about the classified information that came my way? I have to just shut up? Like, what if I got classified information that our government, was practicing false flag operations, which has happened in the past, proven fact? What if I received that information from somebody, from whoever, and it was credible? What if Daniel David Skyfall gives me something that is, really, really high up there as far as protected information goes? I mean, am I not allowed to speak about that? The reason I keep bringing these types of cases up is I just see us as a nation continuing to head down a path that limits and in many cases takes away free speech. This isn't about whether or not I like Assange or dislike Assange or what I think of him as a human being. I mean, I don't care what he's like as a person. I guess I'm not finding the guilt. And it's like I want to, because of course I don't want anybody in our military to be put at risk. I don't want anybody in our military to be killed. Like I said, my father is a career Air Force man. My grandpa was a World War II pilot. This stuff strikes close to home to me. I don't want anyone to be at risk because of an information leak. But at the same time, I don't see how we can say our information was stolen by somebody who then gave it to a journalist who found that there was a tremendous global interest in the information that he was given. He now releases this information as a citizen of another country. And he's now potentially going to do time in America if we can extradite him. It's scary to me. It's scary to me because I can't get there. I just can't see why we would put someone in jail for speaking about something they know and releasing something to the public that we should all know. And at the same time, if he released information that wasn't of a great public interest, but it was of a minor public interest, even then, I think if we want to charge him under our law, I think we'd be on his side. And to me, I guess that goes back to, look how many trillions of dollars we spend on our military, on wars, on all of that. And we can't protect classified information? This just seems like skipping the blame. We need to be able to protect that information. And if we can't, the person that stole it, Chelsea Manning, needs to be demonstrating how. And if Chelsea doesn't want to demonstrate how, then they need to get some other hacker in there that needs to figure out how it happened. I mean, it just, I don't see why people have to go to jail for it. I don't see why they have to lose their voice for it. And it keeps me up at night thinking about living in a militarized state. The idea that any government could say, I don't like your point of view. I don't like what you're doing. And I'm going to dig into your life, and I'm going to find out where you messed up, and I'm going to jail you for as long as I can. I'm going to take away everything dear to you in this one life that you have because you have an opinion that I don't like. And am I crazy, guys? Does anybody else fear this? I mean, I have a real fear of living in a place where someone says you don't get to speak your mind because, man, is life worth living if speech is not protected? I mean, when Assange was leaking all that stuff about Hillary, Trump was in full support of it. It's just one of those cases where I find myself going, I hope in this scenario someone just works something out with Assange. I don't even know what the answer is because it's not like Assange wouldn't go right back out there and do it again. And that's why I say this isn't about whether I like Assange or don't like Assange. I guess maybe the answer is just accepting that's the world we live in, that we can't start jailing people for information being hacked because we live in a world in which information is going to get hacked. And either we better be ahead of the game or we're going to fall victim to the game. That's the world we live in. We can't start jailing the citizens from other countries because they reported things that were of interest to the world. There's just nothing more important than free speech. About everything and anything. And that's why I have a big problem with all this deplatforming. Especially it all just seems targeted at the far right. And I'm not even a member of the far right in any capacity. But, Twitter, Facebook, like all that stuff. You can't take away people's voices because that's how we identify them as to who they are, right? That's how we know what to look out for. I don't want to get off subject here. I just wanted to kind of put this out there and see how you guys felt about it. Because I'm really struggling with how I feel about this Assange case. I don't see why he should be jailed. And if he is jailed, I think everybody better be worried. Everybody better be worried. Because I think, the idea that if you say something that's good that we like, that's okay. But if you say something that's bad that we don't, we're putting you away. That's scary. But as of today, we have free speech. And I'm glad we do, because that allowed me to make episode number 52 of the In a Crowded Room podcast, which I thank all of you guys for listening. And I will be back tomorrow with more. All the best.